All right. Welcome. I know we are live, and let me get my guest on. Give me just a moment here. We are going to get started. All right, and if you are already there, so I know you'll watch this in the replay, as well as if you are live, I am Natasha L Brown, and we
Hey,
are doing, a few sessions here in Mingo. Hello, sweetie pie. Here in Mingo with life coach J Michael Sherman. And I will read his bio, just let a few more people come in. So just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And if you're watching this replay, whenever you're watching it, so great day and welcome. Definitely Mingo is where we want to start, definitely sharing information for singles, because there are a lot of singles. 42%, I think, is what I found when I looked it up in the
wow.
US. 42% of Americans are single. But the good thing is, they say we are living longer, because studies used to show that we would die early because we didn't have companionship. So the outlook is a little better than it has been in past years. So I'm going to go ahead and read Coach Sherman's bio. Life Coach Sherman is married to the beautiful AS Best on Facebook, but is Aisha Sherman. They have four beautiful children together. And he is not just going to coach us tonight as singles, but he is premarital, postmarital, a little marital in between, and a spiritual
That's
coach,
right.
as well as counselor and senior pastor of Covenant Family Church in Augusta, Georgia. So he is definitely well qualified to go ahead and coach us through some things. And if you have some questions, go ahead and start putting them in the chat. And if you're not comfortable with putting them there, you can inbox me and I'll read them from there as well. One of the things we want to kind of start off with, tonight's topic is going to be being what you want, is what he's going to focus on. But just to kind of give people a chance to get on and to get the dialogue going, we want to talk about the stigma behind being single.
Mm.
I noticed that a lot of people won't post, so it's hard to tag people into the group and not know whether they're married or not. And then some people don't want you to know that they're married, so that'll be a whole nother live that we'll go through. But the stigma behind being single, and I just want you to touch a little bit on that, just as a prelude to what you'll talk about tonight in general.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's such a joy to be able to share and to be able to bring forth anything that could help. I certainly think there's a stigma, yeah, associated with being single, and especially if you grew up in the right type of community where marriage is the ideal, where it is
Right.
the thing to do. Um, you certainly reach a point where being single, like, you get past a certain age, everybody's like, are you getting married? Your parents might be like, are you giving me grandkids, whatever? And there's a lot of pressure that's there. And the stigma, that negative mark that comes, as often just, it's societal pressure. I think we can truly say that there is nothing wrong with a person taking their time to live their best life, to pursue their dreams, their visions, or to accomplish things that they desire to accomplish, or maybe they're just not that interested in love. Like, there's nothing wrong with a person who's not that interested in love. The idea is that scripturally, there's at least three categories of people. They're the people who get married, they're the people who do not get married because they have no interest in marriage, and they're the people who choose not to get married because they want to advance their lives for the sake of the kingdom or the ministry or some other worthy cause. And so I think removing that stigma comes down to us appropriating how many people are choosing to be single. You can't have a stigma with something you're really choosing, like it's an empowerment position. You said
Right.
42% of US citizens are evidently reporting that they're single. I'm confident that many people can't be miserable.
Right.
Somebody's having somebody's
Right.
having a good time being single. And so removing that stigma comes with educating ourselves about the misnomers that are associated with being single. Single could be great, single could be amazing, and I actually encourage people who idealize about being married to enjoy your single time, enjoy your single life.
Right, definitely. And your lovely wife has joined us, so
Hey,
definitely Miss
lovely
A.S.
wife.
Best is on with us tonight, and she is a counselor in her own right as well. So we'll have her do some things just for ladies, probably in my
Beautiful.
other group. But definitely tonight we want to talk about being what you want, and you touched on it a little bit. Enjoying being single. So definitely wanting to, um, basically knowing what you want, because it's a lot of people that are single because they don't know what they want.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
definitely knowing what you want is a big thing. So being what you want, what does that entail?
Well, I think when we talk about being what we want, we need not, look at it like a tit for tat type of thing. Like, oh, well, I want somebody with $100,000. I should have $100,000 too. I don't think it has to be so specific as to like being exactly what you want to have. But what it does come down to is within your state of consciousness, within your state of awareness, being able to accept that you're worthy of what you're calling out for. It's really interesting how many people want something that they really don't inherently feel like that they're worthy of. Maybe we use language like out of my league. There are a lot of men who go after women that in their mind is out of their league. There are a lot of women who go after men who in their mind is out of their league. And in that case, if somebody's out of your league, you obviously don't feel like you kind of belong with them. And it's hard to be in that instance what you want from them. So I would say that ultimately being what you want is not about mirroring. It's not about tit for tat. It's about within your state of awareness, your state of consciousness, really feeling like that you deserve to be with this person. You qualify to be with this person. You don't have them on such a pedestal that you're always trying to chase their approval. That's a big deal. So it's a state. Being is about consciousness. It's about who you are, and just knowing that what you want from others, you deserve to have. You are worthy of that. And there's so many people just I don't think they feel worthy of the love that they really cry out for. It's
Right.
almost like we're
And
looking for love to rescue us and show us how much
right.
we're worthy of and how much we and it's a very interesting position to be in mentally, emotionally.
Okay, kind of stay on that. Most people think that's more of a female mentality, but you
Hmm.
have a lot of men that think that way too. So kind of stay right there.
In terms of what shopping, what way? I'm sorry, help me understand. You say men think like this as well.
With love rescuing you.
Oh yeah,
Needing someone, not being able to be alone, not being comfortable being by yourself. And alone does not mean you're lonely, and
right.
it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you.
Hmm. There are a lot of men who look forward to companionship, look forward to relationship, to answer a void or to feel a need within them. I talk to a couple of young men right now that I'm coaching into a better sense of personal security and personal development with themselves, where they're a little bit clear that marriage for them would mean that their wife is able to bring some things to the table that they know they do not have yet or that they're not ready to perform or to provide. And so I'm talking to men who are looking for women who are more financially secure because they don't feel like they have their finances together. It's really hard and difficult for them. And so, yeah, this is definitely not just on females. Men are certainly in positions where we're looking for things, man. And a lot of us are operating out of grave insecurities, and I think that this could make for a recipe of a bad relationship. But nevertheless, this is where we are, and we're meeting each other. Insecure men, insecure women, we're meeting each other. We're working through it. I think it's unhealthy for sure. Needless to say, it's unhealthy. But this is where a lot of people are, and it is to be understood that it's not just sisters. We struggle a lot as men, emotionally and mentally, and we look for rescuers a lot like sisters do. And it's interesting. That's a whole nother conversation there.
Right, right. So breaking it down, basically being what we want, you dealt with the mental piece a couple of times. So
Hmm.
mentally, what do you think, what would you coach someone in the area of the mental preparedness for being in a relationship, not even just a marriage, but definitely being in a relationship?
Yeah, if I understand your question correctly, I think the biggest part to prepare for when you're going to be in a relationship is how can I say it? To use this wonderful word me and my wife have been talking about a lot, vulnerability. It is to be prepared to be vulnerable. It is to be prepared to let someone in. When you're single, you have an opportunity to build your life with certain parameters, and you have certain boundaries up, and you can choose when to be vulnerable, when not to be vulnerable. You can close off into your personal space. You tend to have your own personal space when you're single. When you get into a relationship, you tend to negotiate away a lot of those freedoms because you want to be with this person. And then the challenge then is to be vulnerable, is to be clear, is to be transparent about what your truths are at this point, at this place. So vulnerability is a big deal in transitioning from being single to being in a relationship. That's probably one of the hardest factors for most people, is to realize, hey, I've got to open up. I've got to talk about things that I don't really want to talk about, even when I'm a little bit annoyed, when I'm a little bit frustrated, or I'd rather not right now. Because that's one thing, when you're single, you have the right to dismiss whoever, to go back to whatever, and your life is as happy and go lucky as it ever was. But as
Right.
soon as you make that commitment to be in a relationship, and as you said, not even marriage, just to be in a relationship, you are committing to share parts of yourself with people that otherwise you would not be sharing. And that calls for a great deal of vulnerability on our part.
Oh, goodness. Opening up and being vulnerable. Okay. So that's the emotional piece. How about emotional and mental? A lot of times people think they go together, but sometimes you need to do some things mentally. I've heard people talk about how mentally they are preparing themselves even for marriage when they're single, making space for another person in their current environment. Because, like you
Yes.
say, a lot of times we get comfortable being single and we say we want someone, but we don't make the room for them. So, definitely mentally, what are some things you would touch on?
Well, if I was going to deal with mentally, I'm talking about a mentality and understanding. You just have to move from being selfish to being selfless. I hate to say it like that, and not selfish. I know you've been coining a very positive spin on selfish, selfish Monday, selfishly me, and it has a very cathartic and therapeutic position. But when you move into a relationship, that concept of selfishness, that mentality of it being you, yourself, and I, is the foremost thing that's challenged. You're including someone else on purpose. And it can be challenging. If you've been single for a period of time, you've gotten really comfortable with your routines, your rhythms, the way you think, what you think is right. And
Right.
getting in a relationship with someone challenges all of that. This person, too, has developed an ideal of what is right or what is appropriate. And mentally, you have to be ready to be a little bit giving there, to understand that the way you process things is not always the best way or the only way or the right way for this relationship.
Okay. You can't be right all the time. All right.
Not all the time. I'm sorry. You have to let some of that go if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody. And the word relationship, let's just accept that it means that two people can relate, at least on this ship. So we've got we've got
Right.
to be able to dialogue and understand each other and have some mutual conversation here and understanding about what's going on.
Okay. So, how about the spiritual piece? Coming together and making sure we're prepared spiritually.
Hmm. When I think of spiritual, I always think of my relationship with God. And for me, having a relationship with God means that I have a better understanding of myself, who I am as a divine creature, as a divine entity. I think that it's important that when two people decide they want to be in a relationship, that they at least go the distance to determine if they are compatible spiritually. Do they believe in the same things? Do they value the same things in life? And it's important that you've done your work mentally, spiritually, emotionally to know where you stand on the subject so that you have something to offer. I don't see how relationships can work when there's a great deal of spiritual disagreement, belief systems, and otherwise. My concept of God is different than your concept of God. Who we pray to is different. I think it's important that spirituality is defined and that it's very clear in a relationship. In order for that to happen, I have to know for myself what I believe. And it does affect unions, it does affect relationships because everybody believes something different. But I would say spiritually, the work of a single person is to determine for themselves how they draw their strength, how they pick themselves up in hard times. It's like spirituality can be a complicated subject. Religion can be a complicated subject, but you can reduce it to, have you figured out how to tap into your divine source? Have you figured out what works for you? Have you figured out how to get yourself out of lows, out of those days when you don't want to produce or you're tired? Like, have you at least mastered that part as an individual before you talk about getting in a relationship with somebody and wanting to see them be happy all the time, and perhaps preaching at them or yelling at them or however it plays out for us, fussing at them that they're not strong enough mentally? Like, have you done your work as an individual to make sure you know what you believe and therefore can share that with others in a way that it can help them in their hard times? I think it's crucial in a relationship. And I've always been very thankful for people who were spiritually in tune with God for themselves. They had their own type of connection with God. It was not
Right.
contingent upon us being together. They didn't need me to pray for them, pray with them, although that would be appreciated. They had their own convictions, and this is how they got themselves through their hard times in their life. And it just upped the attraction for me to know that they had their own little system worked out of how they would get through these things. Spiritual system, that is.
Right, right. Definitely all great components and necessary as far as being single and wanting to be in a relationship.
Hmm.
And even if you're already in a relationship, definitely great tips for us to apply to what we are currently doing. So, one of the last things that I always think about as a holistic coach, always the physical component. What are some things that you would recommend as a single that we should do in order to prepare ourselves?
Look, at the risk of sounding really crass, take care of yourself. At at the end of the day, I think that one of the best times in your life to give attention to you is when you're single. So if you're not at your ideal weight, or you're not making the kind of money you want to make, or you don't feel the best about you, give that attention to yourself, physically and otherwise, to make sure that you feel the best about you. Of course, we're talking about health. We're talking about being healthy. We're not talking about an ideal look here. We're just talking about your ability to be able to get through your days without passing out, without being sick. This. I hate to say it like this, but nobody really wants to get married to have to take care of someone physically. Now, I understand people with exceptional conditions, and please don't be offended if you're one who has a exceptional condition, or maybe there's a handicap or an ailment that you're dealing with, and you can't help these things. And certainly, someone who would be in love with you would need to accept your limitations. But there are
Right.
others of us we're just not doing our part. We're allowing ourselves to really fall by the wayside with regards to our health. We're not pushing ourselves with regards to personal goals. And we want somebody to love us at this state and in this place. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of competition for love. And I'm just saying that maybe we should keep ours for, a little bit more attractive, even physically. Keeping our temple together is a huge part of personal pride. And I think that when people commit to it, that's kind of the new sexy. Healthy is the new sexy, in my opinion.
Okay, so we'll
I'm
have
sorry.
somebody post that in the group that the healthy is the
Healthy is
new
the new
sexy.
sexy. Yes. Like,
Okay,
don't
okay.
nobody care about how good you look if you can't breathe. Come on, need you to get that together now. I say this with love, family. Healthy is the new sexy.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so should we allow, especially if I think I need to lose 5 or 20 or 30 pounds, should I allow that to hinder me in going out and not staying home and looking for someone to be in a relationship with?
Okay, see, that's why I wanted to stress healthy is the new sexy. And healthy doesn't come packaged a certain kind of way. The thought is
Hmm.
that if you have weight loss goals or so that you're trying to reach, certainly don't let that hinder you from living your best life, but be a person who's given towards those goals. I think that it makes you a person of value when you recognize that there are imperfections about yourself, but you're working on it. I think it's just a tremendous quality to have, to be aware, to be conscious, and to be working on yourself. Uh, Again, it's very interesting to me that a lot of us allow ourselves to kind of fall off physically, emotionally, mentally, and by the time we meet somebody, there's so much that has to go into rehabbing us to be ready for love. I think that's very interesting. I would like to definitely see us in a position where we're giving ourselves to that preparation emotionally, mentally, physically. If you want somebody to really carry you over that threshold, we'll keep working on it. We come down to at least to a carrying weight. We gonna get over the
All right.
threshold, baby. We gonna get over it. I don't know what a carrying weight is. Some of us are stronger than others, but I at least need to be able to
Oh
carry
goodness.
you.
Right, right. A few steps at least, right?
At least a few.
Okay.
And this isn't to be crass again. It's hard to talk about these things without people feeling some kind of way. But these are the things that keep us oftentimes from really making those connections. Believe it or not, there's still a great deal of our interaction with people that's based off physical attraction. I know we like to believe everybody's all spiritual and they should be more intelligent, but look, you kind of want somebody that looks good, and it's okay to want somebody that looks good. Maybe we just should keep ourselves to that same standard.
Right, right. Expecting from ourselves what we're looking for. So
Yes.
definitely being what we want.
Yes.
So if there are any questions, we have some interesting comments here.
I can't
If there
read
are
them, but
any
please.
questions, let's see. Jay was laughing at what you said. Your wife, she did put in for us that healthy is the new sexy. And Jay was saying that she was just having this same conversation with someone. And it's good to dialogue about being single because as we started off with, so that it won't be such a stigma. Let's see. Your wife also said vulnerability is courage. You can't truly be who you are without being vulnerable.
Yes.
And a lot of times that hinders relationships from going forward. So we can kind of touch on that. And if you have something else to add to that, Lady Sherman, you can comment there as well. But definitely just being open enough, well, starting with ourselves, being open enough with ourselves that we really want to be in a relationship and we want to share and we want to be vulnerable. But going from the vulnerability point, you touched on it some, but what are some things that we should be looking at as singles, even if we're currently in a relationship? And I say singles, not meaning that we're not in a relationship, but what is it that we should be looking for to be vulnerable? And, we don't want to go on the first date and tell everything, but what's a good way to prepare ourselves?
Here is my rule of thumb for, judging when it's okay to let more of you out, so to speak. And I hope that it helps people. It's really helped me. And that is consistency over time equals trust. If I'm just meeting you, you haven't had a lot of time to be consistent. So if I'm asking myself, when is the right time to be vulnerable with you? That's a hard question to answer. It should be something that's a little organic and that you feel. But I like to give a general rule of thumb. If they haven't had a chance to establish a consistency, maybe it's not a safe time for you to establish your vulnerability. Give them a minute, maybe a couple of days, maybe a few phone calls, maybe a few months. In old school relationship counseling, we used to tell people that you want to give it at least that 90-day probational period before you start investing so much of yourself. You can really see a little bit normally in that 90 days. Much sooner than that, we would call it sliding. And that just means that you're riding a high. Everything's good right now, and you're not even taking into consideration who this person is, how long you've known them. It's just everything feels so good right now. You're all in. And when you're that type of all in, you express your vulnerabilities, you give your stories, you let them know about your family, you let them know about every boyfriend who's ever hurt you. And we call that sliding. Like you haven't even had a chance to really know them. You're just, and what normally happens at the end of that ride is it's a bumpy stop. You're abruptly stopped. It's not as happy as you thought it was. You realize you didn't know them as well as you thought you did, and you almost hate yourself for being that vulnerable with them, for letting them know that much. Now, there are no foolproof ways. You can be with people for years, dating them and being vulnerable, and they still use these things against you or hurt you. But you can kind of safeguard yourself a little bit if you give a little bit of space and time to just allow people to be themselves and to get to know them before you start sharing so much of yourself. Your story, your traumas, your hurts, anything that's near and dear to you is precious enough to you that you should be selective about who you share it with. And I would definitely encourage people single in between and not be very careful about how you release your truths. They're your truths, it's your personal truths, and you can't take it back once you give it to people.
Okay, and Lady Sherman added, in a healthy relationship, each individual has to choose to be with the other. Without vulnerability, you take the chance of stripping the other person of their choice.
That's beautiful. That's
It
beautiful because
is.
I don't really know who I'm dealing with. If you're not
Right.
going to be vulnerable with me, if you're not going to let me know who I'm dealing with, you are stripping me of my choice to be with you. I think I'm with one person when in reality I'm with somebody completely different. I just don't know that. There are a lot of
So
people who
Kim,
struggle there.
let's touch on that for a bit because just like with being comfortable being single or being in a relationship and knowing what you want, and sometimes we don't date enough, we haven't had, even with the same sex, we haven't had enough interaction with people to know what we truly want out of a relationship. So just kind of touch on the fact of knowing who we are so that we can show who we truly are. Because we put on the best face at the beginning of a relationship, and then we forget who we are and we kind of gradually go back to who we were.
I like the idea. I was thinking about earlier about how many of us put on our best face, and our best foot,
Hmm.
game, and we want everybody to think we're the world of us and so on. And that's an interesting little period to be in. Everybody goes through it. We all need to know it. There's a game that we play, a courtship game, and everybody's trying to play this game to the best of their ability to recruit the spouse or the mate that they think is going to, contribute to their quality of life. Every animal group does it. We're not the only species that does it. We go through this little interesting thing. For humans, though, what's uniquely different about us is we have a range of characters we can play in this whole courtship game. And it's interesting because if you choose a character to play that's not true to you, it won't be long before that's going to show up. And so I know it's a little bit challenging if you're playing this game to be honest about who you are. But I like to say that there is a way to play this sophisticated game of love in honesty and in truth and not lose. You're definitely going to lose though if you set this whole premise that you are somebody that you're not. You got your game face on. You don't went and bought clothes to wear to the first date. You renting a car. You own your brother car. Whatever. And that's not really who she gonna realize in a little bit, bro. You can't afford to drive like that. You can't afford to live like that. And it's gonna leave a disappointment, a frustration if that's what she was looking for. There's some terms that go into this that suggest that people will up as soon as they can find a better alternative, they'll switch out on you. You need to pay attention to that.
Right.
People don't like to be deceived. People are looking for what they're looking for. And as my wife said, if you fail to be vulnerable, if you fail to be honest about who you are, you strip them of a choice. You strip them of a choice. Don't strip people of their choice. Let them know exactly who you are and what they're dealing with, at least to the best of your ability. If that changes, because I heard you say sometimes you don't even know who you are. I think that's where honesty still plays a part. To be able to say that, look, this is as much of me as I've had a chance to explore. Much more I don't know. I would like to be able to explore more of me in a relationship. That's pretty bold. That's
Right.
pretty bold. And again, that type of honesty does something in a relationship where at the very least I know what I'm dealing with and I won't be blindsided by thinking I had somebody that knew what they wanted and they didn't.
Right, right. And Kelvin made a comment about the vulnerability piece. He was saying that he agreed you definitely have to be careful. There will be time later to share more. So,
Yes.
not giving too much.
Too
And
soon.
the question is always about people that have children.
Hmm.
When to introduce your children, when to tell the person that you have children. So things like that, there are some standard things that you want to kind of gauge and be upfront about, but definitely you have to know how much of you to share.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say any stories that deal with your personal traumas and hurts and just things that are really near to you and it takes a little bit to even get to a point of sharing that with people. I would definitely say, people who are just coming into your life to pace yourself a little bit, to give yourself a chance to maybe hear some of their vulnerabilities before you express your vulnerabilities to that degree. There's no one, two, three. There's no absolute. But what we're encouraging people to do is to take your time. And I think that that's also something that's challenging for singles. When we are single, we are looking for that next level relationship, and sometimes we don't know how to really embrace that whole period of time of just letting it be whatever it is. It has to be something because I'm single and I don't want to be, and we dating, so this got to be something. And we don't know how to just let it take its time, let it become, let it mature into a beautiful relationship.
Okay, so we're going to pause right there because I want you to touch on, we're going to go into that a little more. But if you're just joining us, and definitely thank you all to everyone who is joining. It is a private group. I've seen a couple of people try to share, so it may not go beyond this page because it's a private group, but you can invite people to join the group. And all they have to do is request, and then one of the admins, myself, Coach Sherman, or Lady Sherman, we'd be able to allow them into the group. So definitely keep that in mind that if you want to share it, it would have to be shared with those that are in the group. As well as, again, we are being given a wealth of information by Coach J Michael Sherman. He is a life coach as well as senior pastor at Covenant Family Church in Augusta, Georgia. And we are definitely in good hands. He is also the CEO of Sherman Consultancy and Coaching. and he is married to the lovely AS Best. She's in the session with us here in the chat. So definitely we want to talk about that. And I was sharing with someone, and this was really profound. We were talking in a group, and one of the young ladies mentioned that when she is dating, she is not dating for marriage. She is dating to be dating. And what ends up happening is she makes great friends when she's dating. Most of us are trained to date for marriage, so we always go in with that preconception of, okay, is this the one? So you really can't enjoy yourself. So definitely want to touch on that because you were saying, just let it be.
Man, let me tell you something. I grew up in the church, and you cannot let dating be.
Okay.
Dating had to be courtship for marriage.
Hmm.
I lived to learn that's the worst thing ever. You should definitely be a lot more inclined to, at the very least, some exploration. Now, what this looks like in the Christian church is not going to fit most people's construct. But I do see room, even for Christians, to consider, this is going to sound interesting, but to consider dating multiples. Now, I'm not saying sleeping with everybody, but I'm saying if the point of dating is to get to know people, is to learn more of yourself as you get to know people, how limited are you when you do that one person for 2 years at a time, 3 years at a time? We tend to date with a conversation latently of marriage. It's like the dating has to have a certain type of loyalty to it, almost, where even though we're dating and we're just getting to know each other, we are so committing in this dating process that we're practically living a marriage life without the contract. It's not long before you're doing everything a married couple is doing without being married. And I think
Right.
that spoils the dating experience. You still have not really gotten to know any more of yourself than you did, per se, before you got with that person. Most of us end up in a serial monogamous type of situation, and it's hard, especially if you're talking about coming from a Christian background where you're encouraged against these type of things because you want to preserve some morals or some virtues. And again, I think that there's a lot of room for us to dialogue about these things, but multiple dating doesn't mean that you're sleeping with everybody. Certainly, I would hope that you have your own virtues and your own standards. And this is just sitting and getting to know people. I think the value of dating multiples is that you have an opportunity to compare and contrast for yourself, to essentially weigh your thoughts and your opinions against multiple minds. Everybody's going to have a different say and a different spin on it, and you have a better chance of determining if somebody's really compatible with you, or are you just lonely and making them fit. I hate to say it
Mm,
like that, but
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like when you've been, hey, I've been waiting, I finally got a blind date, or I finally got somebody. It's like, if you're not careful, you will make that person be with you because it takes a lot to date. So I encourage fun dating. I encourage singles to consider multiple dating. It may not be for everybody. Some people cannot handle multiple anything, but some people can. And the only reason they don't open themselves up to it is because they've been taught against it. And again, I'm not encouraging promiscuity or anything like that. I'm encouraging people to be a little bit more savvy, to have a little bit more fun, to give themselves a break with regards to getting to know each other.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. Let me see, Javonda. At a certain age, it should be with the intent to marry. I'm too old to casually date. The next is near.
Okay, now listen.
Definitely.
Okay, so my sister, I have a sister who's in her 40s. She's 42 this year. And she says a lot of the same thing. That at her age, she's not interested. I have a brother that's a lot closer to 50, and his thing is, bruh, like, if you don't know what you want by now, like, I don't know what you're waiting on. But I think that there's something to be said about ages and stages. Just because you've gotten older doesn't mean you've lived. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are in their 40s and their 50s, giving most of their 20s and their 30s to being somebody's version of something. So it may not
Right.
be ideal for everybody, but yes, even 40 something, yes, even 50 something, you might need to get your groove back and go out there and you know, I'm not going to go there, but go out there and find your few to socialize with and to learn something different about yourself. And so again, I'm not encouraging people to be loose or to have no standards, but I'm saying by contrast, sometimes we're so uptight and we're so rigid. It's like if ours doesn't come this way, they won't find us. And
Right.
I think that might be a huge deal of the problem for a lot of us. We're a little bit rigid, and I'm not going out anymore and I'm not doing this. Well, everywhere you go is 98% women. church,
Well,
your
hello.
occupation. So if you don't create some difference, if you don't allow yourself to develop some liberty in your mind to try something different, the likelihood of your mate finding you in your beaten routine is slim to none. And so, whatever it looks like for you, it's not going to be the same for everybody. You have to give yourself permission to get out there, to try something different, to socialize a little different. And that's really all I'm speaking to. People are going to find different ways to do that, but you have to give yourself permission there.
And group dating would be a good thing too, especially to be able, if it's not all women, definitely, but if you can get out and get a mixture and a variety of people. And what amazes me is we know people that are single, and many times we forget that we know somebody else that is single. And if you get a few people together, you never know what type of connection will happen. So just being open to doing something different. It doesn't always have to be one-on-one dating. And I think, again, people forget there are different things that you can do to go out and meet people. And it doesn't have to be what we traditionally think.
On, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think we cut off.
No, you're still here.
Oh, okay. I can't put enough emphasis on how important it is for us to give ourselves over to that organic process of relationship building. And so that means sometimes putting out of our mind our ideals of what should be happening. I think it's okay to accept that with regards to love, maybe none of us really know. You have a little something in there that's like, oh, I think, I hope, I believe this is really close. But maybe we all have to kind of go with the flow a little bit. And I know that when we've been single or we are single or we've gone through some heartaches and so on, we want to make sure we know. Like, I just need to know, is this the one? I'm a pastor. People come to me all the time, Pastor, let me know, is this the one? I'll never know really how to answer that question. You will have to get through it and find out if this is the one. So I said all that to say that it's really important for us to take our journeys serious enough that we can get involved with them for ourselves and not let anybody else determine for us what it should look like. Have fun being single. Have fun figuring out what that next move is going to be for you. Give yourself a little bit of a pass mentally about what everybody thinks is right. And I think that single is the time to figure out what's right for you.
Definitely single. You don't want to get married and then say, oh, I want to explore. So definitely please do that while
Yeah,
you're
that might
single.
be a little bit of a challenge.
So Javonda, let's see what she said this time. Oh, Javonda, I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at the comment that when you're a certain age, you should know what you want because you should.
That's
And
right.
what's amazing is we try to put it on an age, but sometimes experience will dictate that because you have some people that are in their 20s and they know exactly what they want and they're not accepting anything less. So definitely knowing what you want, but definitely being open to experiencing dating differently and dating not just for the intent of marriage, but allowing it to grow into a relationship that could lead to marriage. Or you could have a great friend come out of a date and you meet their friend, and that could be the person you marry. So just being
Look, how
open.
many people are single right now because they have a resistance to dating outside of their race? And
Right.
that's just something new at certain ages and stages. So I agree, you should know what you want, but sometimes you've been restricted to fishing in a certain pond. And so there's a lot of options for single people now, man. And what is she saying? I see some cracking up going over there.
She said that I'm not marrying this time for love. I did that the first time. The second time will be for stability. And now I can relate to that. Because, when
Okay.
you get married the first time and listening to traditional things, thinking that, you're supposed to be married for whatever reason you were told, especially, like you said, depending on your background.
Hmm.
But once you realize that, and the best example I have, and they always make it public, are the Smiths. They married, it's a business relationship more so than anything. If you listen to one of their episodes where they talked about it, because Jada said she did not want to get married. They only got married because I think she was pregnant and Will wanted to get married. So it's a business relationship. There are a lot of people that talk about how it is a business transaction. And if you're marrying someone that doesn't have that same mindset, then yes, it's not going to be a successful relationship. So definitely that does come with experience and definitely wisdom.
Yeah, I think that what we're speaking to now is the different types of marriages that exist. People marry for different reasons, and it is important to know why you want to be married. If you want to be married just to meet some idealistic status quo of being married, you probably will have a marriage, but it may not be the healthiest marriage because, again, you don't really know what you want. So it definitely takes a little bit to determine what you want and to be bold about creating the type of marriage you want. You just cited a couple who decided they want to have an open definition for their marriage and relationship. That's a challenge for a lot of people, but that's a couple that did not marry expressly for love. So
Right.
we say we want certain things or that we're open to certain things, but are we really open to what those things may come with? If I'm married for a reason outside of love, maybe it's for stability or security, then does that come with certain liberties and parameters that otherwise I would not be privy to? And that's for us to decide. Nobody can really tell you that you're wrong, but having the liberty mentally to define for yourself what you want is key. To let no one make you feel bad if you don't want the
Right.
traditional marriage. She said, I don't want to get married for love. There are a whole lot of people like, well, why else would you get married? That's like having a ham sandwich with no ham. Okay, maybe that's how they feel about it. But this sister said, look, I've been there, done that. Love didn't pay bills. Love didn't insulate against whatever. And I'm now at a place of maturity where if I choose a marriage, it will be for financial security. It will be for whatever. And we can't allow people to change our narrative and make us feel something different.
Right.
Somebody
And you
will
definitely
respond to that.
have to be bold enough to be able to stand by
To
your
be you.
decision.
Yes, that
Right.
part.
All right. So we have another question. Ariel is saying, her question is, after leaving a serious relationship, should there be a minimum amount of time that you give yourself before dating?
That's a loaded question. Let me just say it like this. Statistically, relationships that don't have a window, people that don't have a window of time um, to breathe, to heal, to recoup between relationships, or let's just say marriages. This is the statistic I'm quoting. You end up with something like first time marriages are like 90% failure rate. People who decide they're going to get out of one serious marriage and all of a sudden they're going to get married again within a year or so, the failure rate goes up to like 100%. The idea there is clear, not just in marriage and relationship. When we come out of these serious commitments and it fails or it doesn't go the way we plan, if you continue moving right into another, you've just set yourself up for that one to fail too. And if for no other reason, maybe because you didn't take a chance to evaluate what really went awry in the first relationship. For as much as we like to think that it's all on the other person, a lot of times we too had our challenges and we don't give ourselves a chance to see that on the other side of a serious relationship. And so taking that time should be important. What a minimum amount of time is, I don't know. Statistically, they say that if you've come out of a marriage, give yourself at least 2 years before you decide you want to remarry. I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb, but who's to say that this is absolute? I do think there should be a minimum time, and that would be different for person to person. If you don't give yourself that time, you run the risk of really seeing another failed relationship and then looking like, why? What happened? The same thing that happened in the last one, and we just didn't see it.
So you and your wife answered similarly. She said, definitely give yourself enough time to reset and reconnect with yourself.
Yes, it's important. It's paramount because you just keep sliding out of one situation into another, out of one situation into another, usually without room to grow. And relationships with other people should be about growth. Are you growing? And have you had an opportunity to determine for yourself what you have grown in, or what areas you've grown in, or what you've learned? So I went through a catastrophic situation and I was. Are we there?
Yeah, we just reconnected.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So the long and short of it was you can move on like nothing's happening, act like you're good, or you can stop yourself and ask, what have I learned? And so, whatever length of time you take between relationships, at least stop long enough to ask, what have I learned? Did I learn anything from that last disaster? Because I don't want to repeat that one again. And it's
Right.
not just what did I learn about them, it's what did that disaster teach me about me? Because that's the only way I can grow.
And that's what Javonda just said. She has a little comedy tonight. The devil is a lie. I've been divorced 15 years. How long? Oh, Lord.
Well, hopefully, Javonda, if marriage is on your agenda, it will meet you suddenly. May God, my mother said, if God had to create a new man from the dirt, the dirt, that's what I'm trying to say, you go have your man. So I pray with you that God will resurrect and bring him on, Jesus. 15 years is too long.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Okay, so if you all have any other questions, definitely you can still make the comments even once we are off the live. And Coach Sherman would still be able to see them. She said, Amen. And Coach Sherman will still be able to see them and respond. And Lady Sherman will respond as well because she has been putting some great responses in the comments. So definitely, I have enjoyed this. I hope you all learned something. Thank you so much for the shares and the love, the likes, and just interacting and commenting. So we will do this the next 2 Thursdays. So if there's something in particular you are looking for us to discuss, go ahead and make sure you inbox. If you're friends with both of us, you can inbox either one of us. Yes, thank you for the feedback. If you are friends with both of us, you can inbox either of us the questions, or you can post them here in the group so that we'll know what you're looking for. But we'll have a different topic on next week. And again, Coach Sherman will answer some questions. And okay, thanks for a very informative session. And let's see. Oh, this was great, guys. Thank you. So definitely
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thank you.
all joining us, and we will be back here next week in the group again at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you know someone that's single and they're on Facebook, go ahead and invite them so we can add them to the group so they will be able to see the live because they won't be able to see the live. It is a private group, so keep that in mind.
Thank you.
And Coach Sherman, how can they get in touch with you if they need any coaching or if they want to experience you in worship service?
The best way to contact me personally, if you're talking about coaching, is to find us there on Facebook at Sherman Coaching, Consultancy and Coaching. You can email me directly at jordansherman.com. And if you're looking for a great place to come and worship, of course, we'll have you. We're right here in the lovely Augusta at 3421 Old Louisville Road, and we meet every Sunday at 11 o'clock. Come check us out. We'd love to have you, or check us out online or connect with us any way you can. We're going to give you that word the same. Thank you so much for having me with you tonight, Sister Natasha. It's always good.
You are very welcome, and thank you so much for coaching us in this session. They didn't realize they were being coached, but thank you so much for coaching us in this session.
Yes,
We
indeed.
have definitely enjoyed the interaction, and comments have been very enlightening. So I look forward to seeing everyone back here with a friend, a single friend, and maybe Javonda and I will meet someone, not for love, but we'll be able to get our second husband.
Come on, Jesus. Y'all touch and agree right now.
All right. So as always, as I always say, and if you don't know who I am now, I'm Natasha L Brown. I love you and definitely have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
again for
night.
having me. Have a good night, everybody.